Today we're going to explore a practice that can unlock the doors to a new reality, one that is filled with health, abundance, and joy. Our thoughts, feelings, and intentions have the power to shape our reality. It's not just about positive thinking, it's about understanding the intricate dance between our mind and the quantum field. You see, there's a fascinating connection between our thoughts and the electromagnetic fields that surround us. I shared a story from the 1940s about a researcher from Yale University who delved into the study of electromagnetic fields around living organisms. This researcher observed a consistent pattern in the electromagnetic fields of different types of eggs, where the positive charge was located at the head and the negative charge at the tail. What's truly mind-blowing is that this pattern extended to women with a propensity for uterine cancer. The electromagnetic fields around their bodies mirrored the patterns seen in the eggs, and those with a field pattern also had a physical manifestation of cancer. But here's the kicker. Some had the field pattern but hadn't developed cancer yet, suggesting that the field precedes the matter. So the takeaway here is that the field is not just a byproduct of matter, it's the creator of matter. Change the field and you change the matter. Now, how do we change the field? Intentions alone did nothing to the DNA, but when these individuals opened their hearts, generated elevated emotions like gratitude and love, the DNA responded. Over 20% of the DNA unwound at a remote location. This tells us that the combination of thought, electrical charge, and feeling, magnetic charge, creates a coherent field. And it's not just any field, it has to be coherent. Practice brain and heart coherence. When we create coherence, we synchronize our energy and connect more profoundly with the quantum field. Now, coherence isn't just a fancy term, it's a key to unlocking our true potential. When we're under stress, operating in the fight or flight mode, our brains enter high beta brain waves. In this state, we try to control and predict everything in our lives. We're focused on the past and the future, unable to tap into the present moment where true possibilities exist. The latest research in neuroplasticity and epigenetics tells us that we're not bound by our past or our genes. We have the power to change. Contemplate who you want to be and what kind of life you want to live. The frontal lobe, with its connections to the entire neocortex, starts piecing together a new understanding, creating what I call intention. Intention is not just wishful thinking. It's a process of mentally rehearsing and imagining the future we desire. By doing this, we install the neurological hardware in our brains as if it's already happened. The brain, typically a recorder of the past, becomes a map to the future. But here's the catch. It's not about waiting for external circumstances to feel gratitude, joy, or empowerment. These emotions should precede the experience. The body's unconscious mind doesn't distinguish between the actual experience and the one we create through thought alone. So by feeling those powerful emotions ahead of the experience, we shift from living in the past-present reality to the future-present reality. Now let's talk about the concept of getting beyond our environment, emotions, body, and time. When we transcend these elements, we become pure consciousness. This consciousness can connect with the field, something greater than ourselves. In those moments of pure consciousness, we're no longer defined by our roles, titles, or even skin color. We're pure awareness. My journey into neuroscience was fueled by the realization that this internal process of rehearsing and imagining holds the key to transformation. I share stories of people who, during my events, experienced long moments where they lost track of time and space. These moments of deep presence allowed them to access other possibilities beyond the familiar past and predictable future. So let's get practical. How do we incorporate these teachings into our daily lives? Let's break it down. Morning contemplation. Begin your day by contemplating who you want to be. What would it feel like to be that person? Allow your mind to create a vision of your desired future. This is not about wishful thinking, it's about setting a clear intention. Meditation. Dedicate time for meditation. Find a quiet space, sit comfortably, and close your eyes. Focus on your breath to quiet the mind. As you enter a state of coherence, imagine your future self and feel the emotions associated with that vision. Let gratitude, joy, and empowerment flow through you. Evening reflection. Before bedtime, reflect on your day. Acknowledge the moments when you reacted from old patterns and consciously choose a new response for the next time. This reflection helps in rewiring the brain and building new neural connections. Repetition and consistency. Repetition is key. Consistently practice this daily routine, and you'll start seeing shifts in your thoughts, emotions, and ultimately your reality. Remember, it's a journey, and transformation takes time. Now let's address the burning question: why is it so hard to change? I shed light on this by explaining that our personality, which is made up of how we think, act, and feel, creates our personal reality. To change our reality, we need to change our personality. But why is it challenging? Our personalities are deeply ingrained patterns, and the body, through the unconscious mind, resists change because it perceives it as a threat to survival. The body is wired to seek the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. That's why breaking free from old habits and beliefs requires conscious effort and repetition. All right, let's break down this transformative wisdom into simpler terms. Imagine your brain is like a super smart computer, and every time you learn something new, it's like adding a cool new feature to that computer. So why is learning important? Well, think of it like this. Every new thing you learn creates a connection in your brain. It's like building a road from one place to another. The more you learn, the more roads you build. And these roads help you get to where you want to go in life. Now let's talk about this cool process called neurological hardware. It sounds fancy, but it's like the software in your brain that helps you do stuff. When you keep learning and practicing, it's like upgrading that software. You're getting ready for the awesome future you dream about. It's like becoming the superhero of your own story. So, here's the fun part. I am inviting you to be the boss of your brain computer. I'm saying, hey, you can be the architect of your own destiny. Now, what does that mean? Imagine you're the superhero creating your own super world. You get to decide what it looks like, feels like, and even smells like, if superheroes care about that sort of thing. To make this superhero dream come true, I have a special daily routine for you. It's like a superhero training program, but way cooler. First, there's contemplation. That's just a fancy word for thinking about who you want to be. It's like imagining your superhero self with all the cool powers and adventures. Then comes meditation. No need to get confused. It's just sitting down, closing your eyes, and taking a deep breath. This is where you practice being calm and happy. And guess what? It's like your brain is doing push-ups and getting stronger. Lastly, there's reflection. That's like looking back at your day and thinking, how can I be an even better superhero tomorrow? It's like checking your superhero moves in the mirror. Now, here's the secret sauce. When you do this daily routine, it's not just about thinking happy thoughts. Nope. It's way cooler than that. You're actually rewiring your brain. It's like turning your brain into a super flexible superhero brain. You're changing how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And why is that so awesome? Because you're not stuck with the same old story. You're like the director of your own movie, and you get to change the script whenever you want. Imagine going from a shy sidekick to the superhero everyone looks up to. That's the power of this daily superhero training. In the end, I want you to know something mind-blowing. You're not just a product of what happened in the past. Nope, you're a creator of the future. Picture this. Your thoughts and feelings are like magic keys that can unlock doors to a world where anything is possible. And guess what? This magical world is called the quantum field. It's like a giant treasure chest of possibilities. When you align your thoughts and feelings, it's like saying, open sesame to that treasure chest. Your dreams, your goals, they're all in there waiting for you. Now, if you trust that you can go a little further, then all of those thoughts are just thoughts in your head that you have to create coherence around. So if you stopped and you said, I am going to master this moment, forget about going anywhere, doing anything, following instructions. I'm just going to walk, work with my body to get it back into the present moment and continue to unfold back into possibility. Here's my question. If you turn that battleship around even slightly by executing a will that's greater than that program, and you are in hot pursuit of your own freedom, and your brain and your personality is beating you up, I've had those moments. And you know what? It's David and Goliath. It has always seemed bigger than me because I've given it so much of my attention and so much of my energy. It is bigger than me. But when I no longer pay attention to it, just like not giving my power to it, now I can settle myself back into the present moment, and it's just the thought. And I examine that thought, I look at it, and I become very familiar and conscious of it. And then my brain will say, well, what about this? You did this wrong. It's too late. Give up. And then I address that thought. Now here's my question. 45 minutes of doing battle with your personality and continuously choosing love and unfolding deeper into it. If you make the effort to disinvest your attention and energy out of Goliath and pull energy back to you, but the next meditation that you have could be the easiest meditation for you to connect. Is it possible? So then that had to come up for you in order for you to evolve through it. Yes or no? And your body is just saying, look, I'd rather be worrying about my taxes than connect to the divine. Yes or no? There's a book that was one of my favorite books I ever read. It's called The Red Lion. And The Red Lion is a great story of an initiate that murders an alchemist and drinks the Philosopher's Stone, drinks the Red Lion, the elixir of life that causes immortality. And he wasn't ready to drink this Philosopher's Stone. He wasn't of the right consciousness, and when he drank it, he never forgot any of his lifetimes. And he saw all his demons. And this book is this journey of this soul through different levels of every single lifetime you can imagine that you and I can relate to. And he runs into a secret society and he becomes initiated. And there's a chapter in The Red Lion called The Kilkyard. And I asked my children to read that chapter every year. Every year they have to read that chapter because the initiate sits down in front of a statue, an inanimate statue. And his job is to animate that statue and bring it to life. Are you with me? And for years, he wakes up in the morning, makes his tea, has his breakfast, and then all day he's putting his life force and his energy into animating this particular statue. And after years, he notices it swallows. He notices it moving its finger. And the moment he starts to realize that he could take something inanimate and bring it to life, he gives it more of his attention and energy. You with me still? Until it is a walking, talking being. As we begin to create more coherence in the brain, more coherence in the heart, you're creating a very profound laser, a Wi-Fi signal that can allow you to read information. Can't read it if you're separate. You can't read it if your brain's incoherent. You can't read it if your heart's incoherent. And so the more coherence and order you have, the more the experience gets enriched because you can't read that information unless you're ready for it. That's the point. So as people start getting through this and they start having very profound moments and they're now opening their heart and they can sustain heart coherence and they know how to create brain coherence, that's the formula. And now they have a laser. They have coherent light and information that can read information that exists beyond the senses. And the pineal gland, once activated, will transduce it into profound imagery. Whether you see with your eyes open or your eyes closed, it doesn't matter because it's more real than anything you've ever experienced. Let's have a small pause here. It's the next part. Dr. Zhou is going to talk about his research about the 4 states of matter. Listen carefully, this is very important. And so I started researching and I found that there's 4 states of matter. There's solids, there's liquids, there's gases, and the biggest, most abundant form of matter, what's called plasma. And plasma is when you have a negative charge and a positive charge, and they haven't formed an atom yet. So if you have a negative charge and a positive charge, then you're going to have an electrical current running between the two and a field around that current. And the universe really, stars connect through plasma. Everything connects through plasma. S. Intention is, you may say, I want a healing, I want a new job, I want a new relationship. Now, the moment you ask the question, the what if question, what would it be like to be in love? What would it be like to have a new job? What would it be like to be in a new relationship, to do whatever, to be healed? The moment you ask that question, the part of your brain called the frontal lobe, which is the crowning achievement of the human being, 40% of your brain is the frontal lobe. It's the workshop, it's the creative center. Frontal lobe has connections to all other parts of your brain. The moment you ask an open-ended question, you speculate a possibility. The creative center turns on, and it looks out over the landscape of the entire brain, and it begins to call up different networks of neurons that are stored in your brain based on something you've learned intellectually, knowledge, or something you've experienced in your life. Like, well, I know what it is to be in love, or I know what it is to have a good job, or I read a book about it, and it begins to call up these different networks of neurons, and then it seamlessly pieces them together to create a new idea, a new vision. Now listen, your body's gonna go like, well, we gotta get a cup of coffee, and you gotta go, I'm tired, and you gotta go, body, you're not the mind, I'm the mind right now. You're gonna sit here, I'm gonna feed you, you're gonna get your coffee, you're going to do all those things, but right now, this is my time. You're going to obey me, right? So now the body's no longer the mind, you're the mind. And so when it wants to get up and you become aware of it, you return back to the present moment. Every time you do, that's a victory. And you're changing some aspect of yourself. So then ask yourself, I do this all the time. Write down 4 thoughts that you're going to stay conscious of the whole day. I can't, it's too hard. You'd be surprised the moment you become conscious of what those thoughts are, how unconscious you've been to them all day, all for weeks on end. Write down what you speak, how you speak, 4 things you want to change, how you act. How do you act? Do you complain? Do you blame? Do you make excuses? Do you feel sorry for yourself? That's a victim consciousness. What emotions do you live by? Is it possible that you're so used to living by guilt you don't even know it's guilt, it just feels like you? Do you allow your energy to drop? Become conscious of those states of mind and body and review them and say, this is the old self. Then say, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? And start firing and wiring and start feeling it. What behaviors will I demonstrate today? What choices will I make? One day, one lifetime. Just like you did, rehearse them. Rehearse the whole entire thing. Begin to install the neurological hardware in your brain. And if you keep installing it, the hardware is going to become a software program, and you're going to start thinking and acting that way. And then here's the tough part. Can you teach your body emotionally what your future is going to feel like before it's made manifest? And don't get up until you feel that way. Now practice that for a few days and then see if you can stay in that state and watch all of a sudden all those weird doors start opening for you. Synchronicities. Synchronicities, whatever they are. Number 2, take time at the end of your day before you lay down, and give thanks for your life. Feel gratitude and really teach your body what it feels like. The emotional signature of gratitude. Gratitude means you're getting something. If I give you something that's of value, you would say thank you because you would feel it, right? So when you're receiving, you're giving thanks. So gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving. So then people only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to their emotional state. So if you're in a state of gratitude, every thought's gonna make it right down into your body. If you're saying, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, and your body's programmed the negativity, it's saying, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not, thought's going to stop right here. So as you elevate your state, there are about 100-200 different chemical reactions that go on in the body that begin to restore and repair the body in a state of gratitude. And so we've done the research to prove that. 10 minutes and just feel it with all of your heart. That's it. The third thing, and very important, take time. Whenever it is, sit down, close your eyes, and begin to just open your awareness to the space around you and just sense it and pay attention to it and become more aware of it. The act of opening your awareness begins to reduce the stress hormones and creates more coherent brainwave states. I'm doing it right now. It's just a practice. It's just a practice. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. Most of our thoughts and feelings come from our past experiences. They come from our memories. In fact, your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of all the things you've learned and experienced to date. It's an artifact. And when you have an experience, when you're in the midst of an experience, all of your 5 senses plug you into the external environment. And as your brain is processing all of this vital sensory data, all of that information rushes back to the brain, and when it reaches the brain, it causes jungles of neurons to organize themselves into networks, to string into patterns, to reflect their interaction with their external environment. The moment those neurons organize into patterns, the brain makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And so experiences tend to create more long-term memories because it patterns or stamps or embosses networks of neurons into very specific patterns. And then the emotional quotient helps us to remember the event. So we learn something new intellectually. We also cause networks of neurons to form. The Nobel Prize laureate Kandel in the year 2000 found that when people learn just one bit of information, they double the number of connections in their brain from 1,300 connections to 2,600 connections. So if they didn't review that information or repeat it, the connections pruned apart. So we know then that learning semantic information begins to organize circuitry in the brain, and experiences enrich the brain. The end product of experience, of course, is the emotion, and it causes us to feel certain ways. You can remember where you were on 9/11. You can tell me who you were with, what time of day it was, what you were doing, because whatever you were seeing in that moment or hearing in that moment changed how you were feeling. And the moment you felt altered or you felt differently, significantly, your brain perked up and you paid attention to whatever caused that. And that event in and of itself is called a memory. So then most of our thoughts and feelings tend to be within the neural circuitry of the past and the emotions of the past chemically. So if you take a thought, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. So if you combine a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, and you have a series of good thoughts that are connected to a series of good feelings, that cycle of thinking and feeling creates what's called an attitude. If you have a series of negative thoughts that are connected to some pretty bad feelings, you'll say, I have a pretty bad attitude today. So if how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, then attitudes are just shortened states of being. You feel good in the morning, you feel bad in the afternoon. If you take an attitude, an attitude, an attitude, and you begin to string attitudes together, when you combine an attitude, an attitude, an attitude, you start to form what's called beliefs. Now, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again until you hardwire it in your brain. And because beliefs are based on past experiences, then the very boundaries of our beliefs are how we feel. And so when our beliefs get challenged, it typically doesn't feel right. I know from the research that we've done that the redundancy of thinking and feeling and thinking over time, for example, a person has an insecure thought, then they feel insecure. The moment they feel insecure, they think more insecure thoughts. They fire and wire more circuits in their brain to feel more chemicals of insecurity. And then once they're feeling insecure, they think more insecure thoughts. And they do this over and over again. Right on the other side of your fear is courage. Right on the other side of your sadness is joy. It's the same energy. It's just trapped in the body. And when you stretch yourself past that point and you break free from the chains of those emotional addictions, the side effect of that is called joy. And the body is liberated from that level of mind. And when that happens, there's available energy to create with. And so when you break through that, you begin to love yourself. You begin to respect yourself. And you begin to love and respect others because you see yourself in them. And now that you're free from it, you can understand them with compassion without knee-jerking in the same way. So the difficulty here is really making the time to do it. And if you began to think about a new way of being and you moved into a state where you said, I'm not going to get up until I am this person. And not only did you memorize it neurologically in your brain, but you allowed the thoughts that you were thinking to become the experience to the point that your body, as the unconscious mind, began to live in that future reality in the present moment. And when you got up, when mind and body were working together in that state of being, and you said, I'm going to maintain the state of being my entire day, and I don't care. Bring on the challenges, because I want to test my greatness. And you did that the entire day. The end of your day, when you finished your day, more than likely you'd have more energy than when you started. The literal translation of the word meditation in Tibetan means to become familiar with. The symbol means to become familiar with. So if you're becoming conscious of or familiar with your unconscious self to the point you're so conscious of your unconscious thoughts, so familiar with your unconscious habits, and so aware of your emotions that you would never let them go by unnoticed by you. There's no chance for you to return back to the old self, to know thyself. So people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problems. And those problems are memories in the brain that are connected to certain people and certain things at certain times and places. So they wake up in the morning and they start thinking in the past. Now, the moment they start having those thoughts, every one of those experiences has an emotion associated with it. So when they start thinking about their problems or the problems of the world or the problems of their body or whatever it is, problems at work, they all of a sudden start to feel the correlated emotion. So now their body's in the past. So now people then get caught up in an emotion, they reaffirm their identity, they could wake up in the morning and feel nothing at all. And then all of a sudden they say, well, wait a second, I've got to get back to myself. So they start thinking about their problems, and here come the emotions. And they say, oh, now I feel like me again. So those emotions then begin to influence our thoughts. Like if you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And when you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you're going to think more thoughts equal to being a failure. And the cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking causes you to say, I am a failure. And the repetition of that process of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking conditions the body to become the mind of that emotion. Now the emotion is stored in the body. Now the body's literally in the past. And the body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between the actual experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body's believing it's in the same experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So then getting people out of the past is the work. So then they wake up in the morning after they reaffirm who they are, and they can't think greater than how they feel. They're in the familiar past. So if you're in the familiar past, you're going to do the things that reaffirm the emotions of your predictable future. So you wake up in the morning, you check your WhatsApp, you check your text, you check your Twitter, you tweet, you check your Facebook, you check your email, you check the news. Now you are really connected to everything that's known in your life. And then you run through a series of routine behaviors. You move around your house the same way you always do. You do all the same things. You go to the same grocery store, you buy the same food, you shop the same way, you do all these, you watch the same TV shows, and people do this for 10, 20, 30 years. Now their body's on autopilot, and their body's dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past. you could actually take their yesterday and lift it up and set it on their tomorrow, which means then they've lost their free will to a program. So now the familiar past and the predictable future is called the known. There's only one place that you have to train a person to be so that they're not in the known, they're in the unknown, and that's called the present moment. So people get very happy being unhappy because they would rather cling to their unhappiness than take a chance in possibility. So stepping into that river and beginning to make a new choice and understanding that uncertainty, that unpredictability is the unknown. Now you're in that river of change, and it is the neurological, the biological, the chemical, hormonal, genetic death of the old self. People say to me, well, if there's uncertainty, I can't predict my future. And I always say the same thing. The best way to predict your future is to create it, not in the known, right there. That uncertainty, you can learn now how to regulate your state instead of living in fear, because the idea that things are going to get worse, the idea that you can't predict, the idea of being uncertain or can't control something actually sets off the stress response. So now you're in the unknown, and this survival gene is switched on. Of course, people are going out of the infinite possibilities that exist in the quantum field. They're going to select the worst scenario in their mind, right? So then what if you're in the unknown and you understand that, and now you can work back into that present moment and you say, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain, put my attention behind? What behaviors today, one day, what behaviors do I want to demonstrate? And the act of closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing who you're going to be when you open your eyes begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like you've already done it. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past.